All right, I think it's time to explore Playwright. So you can pull up playwright.dev. Let's go to the command line. First, you really do want to make sure that you have Node. So as long as you can see a version number when you do Node, you're good. We do .exits, and then all right. So let's go back to playwright.dev. You have multiple options here: Node.js, Python, Java, .NET. You can look at the documentation for all these. We're going to do Node.js, and let's go get started. So go to the documentation, look at why Playwright. There's a lot of good reasons. If you've done any automation stuff before, you can kind of see some of the benefits. It is pretty good. I mean, I like it. Um, so let's go to getting started. Go to the installation section. We've got this npm i-d playwright. So use npm or yarn to install Playwright in your Node.js project. So we're going to need to create a project. So let's go to cd desktop, and then we're going to create a new folder called testing Playwright. All right. And so we've got testing Playwright, and then we're going to need to go into that folder. Okay, once we're in there, we're in a blank directory. We're going to go over and we're going to copy this, and paste and let it run. Let it do its thing. Okay, so looks like everything was good. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to go code dot, and that should open Visual Studio Code for me, which it is. And then you can see this is my project name, and then we've got our node modules. If you're pretty new to kind of this, we've got our package.json. This is where you can house all your dependencies. You can create scripts within here. We'll discuss all that later. And then this way you can provide this project to somebody without these node modules. You can run a script and then it'll build out all the node modules and dependencies that you need. So package.json, go on the internet and look at the importance of that with JSON, or with Node. All right, so what's the next thing that we're gonna do? Well, let's go back to the documentation. And let's see. Usage, once installed, you can require Playwright. So you require Playwright. And then you can, by the way, this is kind of like a code along. I'm learning this as well. So I'm going to go through the documentation and we're going to see how it goes. We've got Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit are the ones that seems like we can put in here. Looks like we have Chromium.launch, which gets stored in a browser variable. So, and then so we launch it and then we can close browser. Okay. Pretty, they talk about the asynchronous and returning promise objects. All right, so this is how we're going to need to start off everything to make sure it's asynchronous. Our first script, we'll navigate to this website here, and we'll take a screenshot. All right, so that seems pretty simple. So let's grab that. Let's go to our project. And let's do a new folder here. Do file, and we'll call this test.js. You're the cool thing about this is you can use TypeScript too. Of course, it's pretty close to the same. And that's probably the preferred route that I would go is TypeScript working with a group. If you're working with a group of people. So let's go copy. And we've saved this. Now I can open up a terminal. So I went to terminal, new terminal, and here's my terminal window. I'm in the correct directory, so then I can go node test.js, and right here, if you noticed, this example.png just displayed. So the cool thing about that is we didn't see the test run. It happened really fast, but it also happened in headless mode, which is, opposed to non-headless mode. And yeah, so it did this kind of in the background, took a screenshot, saved the screenshot. It was pretty simple. So let's see what else they have. So we can take it out of headless mode. This is now saying Firefox launch, so we can do that for fun, just so you can see how quickly it is. Yeah, just take this whole thing. Okay. And we'll go back to our project testing file, and then I'm going to want to do this right here. Oops. Don't forget your await. We've got it in headless mode. We're going to slow it down to 50. One thing that we're going to want to do is change this up here to Firefox. And I'll save this, and let's run the same command. I'm just going to go down. I'm going to press up, and then I'll enter it. And this is probably going to open up in a different browser or a different screen, but hopefully you got to see it really quickly. It opened up the browser. We saw it for a second, took its screenshot, replaced the screenshot here, and I think we're good to go there. So that seemed pretty simple. All right, so we can record scripts using the command line interface. So the CLI can be used to record interactions and generate JavaScript code. Okay, so I have seen this before. So let's do that. Let's just install npx, Playwright, CodeGen, Wikipedia. Let's not do Wikipedia. Let's do, I created a website, just it's locally for me. But just to kind of test certain things out here. So I'll move this over here. Here's my website that I use just for quick testing purposes on different types of form elements and how these things work. And there's frames inside of iframes, and so, and then it's basically a kind of a test, right? So you have this radio button input, you select other. So I'm gonna select other, and the website turned green, so I know this is correct. The other thing, and now I'm gonna go click first name, and I'll type in Nate Blazer, and that turned green. So you notice over here, it automatically filled the stuff in there. So this is like a really good way to like learn how to start interacting with things. Just interact with things and see how they do it. They have, you can basically retype all this stuff up to different locators that you are commonly used to. They've made it fairly simple. The thing that everybody touts really is their ability to wait for elements to be ready. So there's less issues when these tests are running. There's less failures that happen. But all right, so we've got that now, and I'm going to look at my test here and see what does it look like I can replace. So we want this async, we want the Firefox browser. Let's go grab all of this right here. And yeah, we'll just replace this here. So I've got my code. You can make it pretty however you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this out. Let's slow-mo this even more. And you know what? Let's just turn off the browser close. So let me run this test again so you can kind of see what happens. All right. Oh. So we came across the failure. What have I done wrong? I can hit control here and I can hit click and it'll take me right to the area. So I know something's happened here. Oops. All right. And we'll control Z all this stuff. Got Firefox, WebKit, slow-mo. Go to the page. All right. So let's try this again. Waiting for selector. Oh, that's interesting. So I think, for my full lack of experience here, that this is doing a fill. Let's save this. I don't know why it did that. Okay, gotcha. All right, all you got to do is read the debugging stuff. So for some reason when I clicked on this, the scripter. Okay, interesting. Well, we know that that's possible now when using this. So use with caution, but it sure does help you still build stuff fairly quickly. At least kind of get an idea of how Playwright works. So yeah, so we don't need that unless I did something really weird there that I don't know. I'll review that video later. But we'll move along. So I see that I did run this once before, and I did have problems with certain types of elements with that. So if I was to run this again, let's clear this, and then we'll press up. I'll run the test again. Let me clear this. And let's run this again here. I did in another place, another time. So one thing that I did see before when I did this is I had these multi selections in this type of element, and we can right click and inspect. It had a hard time doing a multi-select here. Like I couldn't actually interact with this. I'll show you kind of example of what has happened. Uh, ultimately you're going to have to be able to script some of these things. But if I try to click on this, I can't click on an individual element within there that I know of. So this type of element definitely kind of had a few issues. It was pretty easy to solve. I mean, they had a pretty easy way to select multiple options here. Something else while we're in the Playwright Inspector, you can drop this down, and so this is the Playwright test, but probably should do JavaScript. And then you can take the JavaScript stuff here and move it in there. So this would have been the appropriate way for me to do it. So target as JavaScript, but you have all these other options. Cool. So let's go move along to see what else we can look at. So we know that we have a tool that helps us write the scripts. It's probably not going to help us do logical things like iterating over multiple options, but we'll see what else they got. So TypeScript support will work out of the box. That's kind of cool. Windows, Mac, Linux. One thing that's pretty interesting is when you actually do this, you install this, it automatically you get Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. You can just automatically test out of any of them. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then kind of another little note to do. Let's while we pop over to the core concepts. This is a library for automation. This isn't necessarily a testing. Like you have to add other things, other dependencies in to be able to have like really good assertions, or use Cucumber if you want to. So all these things need to be added to it. But Playwright is a library that allows you to automate. So, all right. So core concepts. A browser refers to an instance of Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. Playwright scripts generally start with launching a browser instance, and end with closing the browser. The browser instance can be launched in headless, so we kind of already played with that, or headed mode. All right, launching a browser instance can be expensive, and Playwright is designed to maximize what a single instance can do through multiple browser contexts. So there's different kind of like these layers, is what I understand, and you can open up a browser, and opening up a browser is kind of heavy. That's what when they say expensive, it takes more resources. They can open multiple contexts, so you can, and those are kind of isolated. I think they're going to talk about this actually here. Um, so they'll have isolated incognito like sessions, and this is really great for like a private chat where you can have one user go in and then another user go in, and then they kind of communicate with each other, and you can test things that way. So that allows you to do that. And then that would be you can open up new context. So let's see what else. Browser context can also be used to emulate multiple scenarios involving mobile devices, permissions, locale, and color schemes. So you can mess with that and emulate browsers from mobile devices. Let's see. Pages and frames. It'll be interesting how they work with that. So the first thing I guess we're going to talk about is pages. They talk about frames. That's really sometimes a pain to deal with in other. Okay. So a browser context can have multiple pages. A page refers to a single tab or a pop-up window within the browser context. It should be used to navigate to URLs and interact with page content. So let's see what we got here. We got a new page. Pop that in page. We go to the page, example.com. We fill out we look for an ID of search. So this is using a CSS selector. And then they type in query, click the submit button, console log the page URL. So if you want to see what the page URL is, there's probably multiple other options that you can do in there, and you can see those options if you're, so if I want to go to page dot, I can kind of see everything in here. Let's see if this will, frames, fill, focus, go to, hover, enter, URL. That's just what we saw in the thing. We can, so there's a lot of different things. You can get the page title. You can wait for events. So cool. All right. So now it's about frames. A page can have one or more frames, objects attached to it. Each page has a main frame, and page level interactions like click are assumed to operate within the main frame. So um, if you're new to automation, so if you're using or you've never used things like Selenium or anything else like that, uh, you could have your main frame as whatever you first enter into, and then inside there could be like other iframes. There can be iframes inside of iframes. So if you've used Selenium before, you'll know that in order to click an element in an iframe, you have to go, hey, I'm at my main frame, which is what you're in by default, and then if there's an element within inside a frame, you have to traverse into that frame, and then you can click the element within that frame. Also, there could be a frame within inside a frame, and so then you have to traverse into, so you have your main frame, then you have to go into your first frame, then you have to go into your second frame, and then you can click on the button that's kind of inside the second frame. Hopefully that makes sense, but I probably could write that down. Let's see here. Pages can have additional frames attached with iframe HTML tags. These frames can be accessed for interactions inside the frame. So let's see. So we have to tell that we're in a frame. We have the frame, page.frame. Looks like we put the URL of the frame. Oh, these are multiple ways we can actually. Okay, these are multiple ways where you can access the frame. So the first one is page.frame, and then we can put some type of locator in there and the name of the attribute. Okay, we can get the frame using the frame URL, so we can do the frame URL. Get the frame using any other selector. Okay, so basically any selector that you can select that frame on, it'll take it, and then you can interact with the frame by frame fill. So I'm going to have to maybe mess with this a little bit right here. I'm guessing that this username input, okay, that's what it is. So there's a input field that's got a ID of username input. So you have to basically say frame.fill John. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That there'll be an input within that frame. This is telling you we're in the frame context where then we're gonna get the input and then we're gonna put John. Okay, for me that seems pretty simple. All right, selectors. So we can use CSS selectors. We can use XPath, HTML attributes like ID. You can explicitly specify the selector engine that you're using to let Playwright detect it. Oh. Okay, yep. All selector engines except for XPath Pierce Shadow DOM by default. I don't necessarily have to worry about that, but Shadow DOM elements are kind of cool. It's kind of cool that you can do it. Bummer that you can't use XPath. It's one of my favorite ones, though it's probably not the most efficient one. If you want to enforce regular DOM selection, you can use the light version of the selector. You don't typically need to, though. So using a data test ID selector engine. Okay. And then we got CSS and XPath selector engines are automatically detected. So you don't really have to do anything with that. Find node by text. I never like doing this just because if you have a web app that can use multiple languages, this is kind of pretty tough unless you pass what that text is going to be within the locator. Yeah, so read through this stuff about selectors. Oh, this is interesting. You can click an element with text inside of a ID. So you can do basically use this, and you can use two different types of selectors to help select the element. All right, so you capture text content of a selection that contains an element with text selectors. So page eval. Okay. So you can experiment with this, take this out, and then just see what else is in this, just like we did with this page over here when you typed page, take that dot and then explore, you know, explore what you could do with it. Auto weights, this is something that everybody loves with Playwright. This is what I keep hearing. And it basically uh, is designed to wait for all of these things. Okay, interesting. So wait for an element with a given selector to appear in the DOM. Wait for an element to become visible. So wait for an element to stop moving. So I guess this is, yep, CSS transitions. That's pretty cool. So before you would have to either put some type of, I built my own weights for a lot of these things and try to attach it to a um, a method to be able to click on something, but you would only click on it after all this stuff. But it's really cool. This is already built in to it. All right. Hope you don't mind. It's kind of a go through and read the documentation with Nate type of thing. Um, So we'll pass the auto waiting, execution context, playwright, and browser. Playwright scripts run in your Playwright environment. Your page scripts run in your browser page environment. So Playwright scripts run in your Playwright environment. Your browser page scripts run in the browser page environment. Those environments don't intersect. This is like two different levels. They don't intersect. They are running in different virtual machines, different in different processes, and even potentially on different computers. Okay. This page evaluation API can run a JavaScript function in the context of the web page and bring the results back to Playwright environment. Browser globals like window and document can be used in the evaluation. So okay, yeah. So you're doing document, get the location of the her. Okay, and then you have your href there. The result is a promise or is a function. Oh, or if the function is asynchronous, evaluate will automatically wait until it's resolved. So wait for page to evaluate, waiting for, okay, and then we're going to return the status code of it. So this is how you can go through and evaluate the different primitive values. This is how you can evaluate an array, an object. To be honest right now, if you're just kind of starting with this is great stuff here, but starting off this route and just getting some automation working on any website is kind of a pretty as a it's probably a good idea to play with that. All right, so we have the command line interface. All right, well let's come here. Let's go to Playwright Help. All right, let me hit Control C to terminate this. Control C, and that should close my what I had before. Let me copy this, and so let's go to our little Playwright dash help and see what they offer here for us. So we have our version, so that's an option. Help. We got our different commands. So open a page in a specified in browser specified via dash b dash dash browser. Okay, so we would have our dash b option and then the URL. All right. So code gen opens a page to generate code for user actions. That's what we've kind of already done. So that was our first code gen thing that opens up the tool that allows us to that automatically writes our scripts for us. All right, so we can do a debug mode, run the command in debug mode, disable timeouts, open inspector. Okay, we can install the browser types. Ensure browser necessary for this version of Playwright can be installed. All right, okay, so here's some options, or here's some browser options. So we could essentially go open dash B FF for Firefox, and then our URL. So why don't we just do that right now? npx playwright dash B Firefox. Or is that what I already have up there? No, let's do Chrome. Chromium. Unknown dash B. Oh, silly me. So this is a quick way to open our site in Chrome. And then we've got our Playwright Inspector, which again we can do our recording stuff. Let's see if this allows me to copy this. Nope. What if I right click it? So I can't copy, huh? And I can't highlight. I can copy here and paste this. Does that do that? Okay. Basically just takes the text and inputs it in there. Alright, alright. So we'll close that. We can take a screenshot. So can we do just we're gonna do screenshot file name. So let's go. We have screenshot. Then we have our option. So we'll go screenshot option dash B. We'll do CR again. We'll do our URL. And then we'll do our screenshots dot. Let's try JPEG for fun. See what it does. Check that out. We got our screenshot dot JPEG from our website. All right, cool. I like it. What else do we got here? We have show trace. We have PDF, so saves the page as a PDF. That's cool. We have show trace viewer. All right, let's see what that is. Show dash trace. La 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 la. I'm not really sure that that's gonna do what I think it. Or I feel like there's gonna be more with that. Show trace viewer. Option trace. Let me just see what it does. File directory undefined. So we got this command that we can call help on. So run test with playwright test available in test write test package. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit of a documentation thing too, but it looks like it'll run all the tests in there. That's cool. So first thing we're going to do show dot trace. I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit. Sorry. Show trace view. We got the browser. We can do the help directory. All right. Well, let's go forth and see what else we got over here. So we got the help. We saw what that is. We saw the code gen earlier, so you can read a little bit about that. We can preserve authenticated state. So run codegen with save storage to save cookies and local storage at the end. This is useful to separately record authentication steps and reuse it later. All right, so run with load storage to consume previously loaded storage cookies. Okay. It's kind of nice. So this is kind of something that if you log in to an environment, it stores your cookies. Um, Load storage. Yep. And then it looks like you probably then wouldn't have to log in another time. So I personally didn't use that for um, my other projects, but I can see the benefit of that, and it's probably potentially an option. But it looks like it will store. Yeah, so something to play with. I might break this into a separate video. Custom setups. If you would like to use CodeGen in some non-standard setup, it is possible to call page pause that will open a separate window with CodeGen controls. Okay, we can look at that later. Open page in Chromium. Oh, we basically kind of already saw this stuff. Playwright WebKit example.com. Pretty simple. It can emulate devices. You know what? Let's do it. Let's see what this does here. It's probably gonna. Oh, yep. There you go. So we've opened Wikipedia, and it looks like the emulation is just the size. Okay, so it's not actually emulating the device, it's just emulating the size. Okay, something I'll have to look into to actually understand what that is doing. Emulate the color schemes and size. Okay, so this is how we can decide the viewport size and the color scheme. We can just do it right now. Okay, and then let's just change that to something else pretty goofy to make it seem. Oops. Yeah. So there we go. All right. So we can do the geolocations, language, and time zone. You can experiment on that if you want to. Inspect selectors during open or cogen. You can follow the API tool console of any. Yeah, so we can still do the browser console. Okay, so you can query the selector. I personally, when I go try to like find if I have a page here, I mean let's open this up again. If there's any type of selector that I kind of want to, let's go inspect. And I'll actually, instead of do that, I'll just like click on the element. Maybe we have the help center here. And then I can, I don't know, if you do a control find, and then we do like a selector for, let's see, bomb. We'll do this right here for whatever reason. If you just do the control find in here, you'll be able to find the element right there if you want to test it out. So it's control find within the this elements tab here. All right, so okay, we've already kind of talked about selectors, but you can look more at this is what I would probably suggest you do. You want to take a screenshot. We've kind of already done that before, but you can set everything up the way you want to. So this can be useful for not just automated testing or anything like that, but if you need to get a screenshot of the product for different sizes, you can definitely do that. So it'll automatically go to various places, take a screenshot. So as people are maybe developing something or trying to change stuff in a particular area over and over, you can do that. Capture a full page screenshot. All right, let's just do that for fun. Oh, look at that. That's cool. So it's gonna take the entire page screenshot. That's really cool for like layout and everything. So I definitely know some people that can use that. PDF generation only works in headless mode, so let's do that. Let's generate a PDF. This is a pretty sweet tool. I like it. I like it already. And we haven't even built any tests yet. Oh, well. Let's reveal in File Explorer. Yeah, it does what it does. All right. You can install system dependencies. Ubuntu 18, Ubuntu 20 system dependencies can get installed automatically. This is useful for, all right. right, debugging tools. This is the other thing that people seem to really like about this is the debugging tools. The Playwright Inspector, we already kind of messed with that. But we'll click in here. Okay, so there are several ways to open the Playwright Inspector. We can set this as an environment variable. So it looks like it would be, yeah, of course, it'd be different for these three options depending upon what you're using. But ultimately, you know, our Playwright CodeGen command. So this stuff is like a lot to like write out sometimes. So you're in that package.json file, you can write scripts in there. So you can just set it to call off of one, you know, one word. Yeah. So this is the Playwright Inspector. CodeGen, we kind of went over that already. Stepping through the Playwright script. Okay, when pwd-bug equals 1 is set, Playwright Inspector window will open and the script will be paused on the first Playwright statement. Oh, okay. Then you'll be able to step through it. Cool thing about that is like whatever it's going to be clicked on, you can actually see where the click is going to happen. So I could probably make a separate video on that too. This might be getting long, I'm not really sure. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess there's a lot to this inspector tool. And we'll kind of play with that and see how useful that can be used. Using browser developer tools. Okay, yep. So that's just inspecting, debugging selectors. Click the Explore button to hover over elements in the screen. Okay, verify the selector point, paste. All right, recording scripts. So you can click record your scripts. We've kind of already gone over that. Oh, okay. So we got the inspector. Now we got the Playwright trace viewer. All right, so okay, run in headed mode. Playwright runs browser in headless mode by default. To change this behavior, we've already talked about that. You can slow the option down if you want to see it by slow-mo. Browser development tools. I want to. Okay, no, I want to. I want to learn more about this right here. Okay, so it looks like in here we can start the trace. So context. I think we read something about that earlier. This is the tracing thing that I was in the help. Okay, yeah. When I was trying to figure out the show trace thing. So this is my missing link there. So, all right, I'm gonna copy this because you're probably tired of me at the moment. What is all this? Okay, context browser. Boom, boom, boom. And so it looks like this right here, we're doing a Chromium launch. So let's change Chromium here. We got our browser context. And then we're going to do tracing start. We're going to add screenshot true, snapshots true. So it's going to be a series of shots. So we're allowing screenshots and a series of those screenshots. Okay. And then we have a context, the new page. We go to Playwright. And then we stop the trace. And we build a trace.zip file. Okay. Okay. Let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. Node.js. Let's just see what happens. So, are we in headful mode or no? Okay. So, something's happening. I got my trace zip here. You know what? That's okay. So we have our zip file. How do I extract it maybe? No, I don't want to replace it. What is a dot trace file? Okay. You know what we should do is either go back to that help thing and see if that helps us there, and or we can get rid of this and go back to the documentation. Because it's right here. We want to view the trace file by using that show trace command. Okay. All right. So whatever's happening there, I don't know what's happening there. So I ended it. Maybe I wasn't supposed to end it. Who knows? So show the trace file or and it gave us a thing. We have a thing here. We have the Playwright trace viewer. This is what we were, and then if I click on this, it looks like there's a timeline up here, and then I can kind of view the timeline. It's fun. Action, action, before we got into it, after. Oh no, you know what I wish I didn't do? Let's see something here. Let me see something. So let's go back to the file here. I'm going to copy this X, and then I am going to bring back this here because we have our test. So let's do after our browser. Context page. Yeah, we're going to need the new page context. So then that's going to be page. We're going to go to the page, and then we'll stop. All right, and then we might as well just close the browser after this. So, all right. whatever. So we're gonna go to the website. Is this true? We have our screenshots. Let's go. We can do in Firefox. Headless is false. Slow mo is 50. Let's try it out. We can learn to debug errors together. We're gonna run that. Page is already declared. It is. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not really using browser here. I'm actually using this. Okay. Context is not defined. Well, await yeah, because I'm not good at this. Don't look at me. Okay. I don't think that's fully right either. We got the context and then we got this and then okay. Await page context. All right. Well, lack of experience killed the Nate. Did that work? It didn't work that fast, did it? Ah, it did. It did work that fast. Okay. All right. Let's do show trace. And let's see what other things. Okay. So something funky happened here, but I don't care. I'm not sure what the red is right there. I feel like red means failure, but I'm probably wrong. Maybe it's actionable items. Let's see. All right. So if I click on this, this is my before action. All right. My action before, and that's just going to the page after. So before going to the page, after going to the page. All right. That's pretty simple. Let's go. Now we're gonna do click on. I don't like the way that is, but we've clicked on the gender radio button other. So this is the before we click on it. This is the after. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, here's an action, and it's showing me. Okay, it's showing me that I'm clicking other. So I like that. That's interesting. And then look at this. This is the Playwright Trace Viewer. Okay, so we have our source, and then we have our network stuff. So I can see the network stuff, and I can see if there's 404s. So I would imagine that I can probably scrape this and then maybe check to see if there's any 404s as well. So it would be kind of nice to pop into every page and then be able to go, there's a 404 on this page. So I would like to see how that's possible to happen. Hopefully I would be able to do that with this tool, and it's not just for debugging. It wouldn't be for this tool, but if Playwright allows me to do that, I guess I could do. Yep, okay, that's something to think about. We go to our next input. It shows us the action when we're on the actions tab, the before, the after, and nothing was clicked here. Oh, it's the click. Then we do the fill action before, after. Cool. All right, I can see. I can get down with this. That's the press. All right, and then we take our page screenshot here. That's funny. Okay, so I think we've learned this tool here. I think there's probably more stuff that we can do, but beautiful. Okay, that would be pretty useful. And everything that we just talked about, it explains right here. What is this? Okay, this is just talking. This is they're just using the GitHub stuff as an example. Before action, after action. Yeah, okay. So documentation, could have kept reading it and we would have been fine. But I didn't. Sorry. Viewing the trace, actions, screenshot, snapshots. All right, let's go back one more time. Trace viewer, run in headed mode. Browser developer tools, run in debug mode. Okay, we kind of went through that. Selectors, okay. Well, I hope that this is somewhat useful. I mean, we're about an hour in, and I kind of thought that I would be writing some scripts by now, but I think that's probably a fair amount. I think if you were to trudge through this video, I guess hopefully you learned some things with me about some of these tools. But all right, I'm ending. Thanks, guys.